Hello SPL fans, my name is Shroomraver, one of your analysts for this, the SPL D-League. Yes indeed, welcome to Heat of the Week for week number 5. We are officially past the midway point of the regular season. And despite the position within the season, we are still seeing a fair amount of heat. Now, at this stage, with a good enough record, some coaches can start to be looking to cement their position in the playoffs. You know, with a good enough record at this point, there are some who might even already be cemented in there. And at that kind of stage, it's normal to see some of the heat be dialed back a bit as our coaches look to get those positions solidified and look ahead to playoffs. So we have seen a fair amount of regular sets, should we say. Some of the more offensive mons going into their regular roles. The headlines this week may have been taken by the likes of, for example, TJ Cyclazar, going with the big 5-0 record in that game. And that would sometimes have been considered heat, but mons like Cyclazar have seen a lot of offensive usage in recent seasons of various leagues, and it's starting to prove itself as an offensive powerhouse. But we are here for some of those lesser seen sets, of course, as well you know, and we do have a fair few to go over today. Maybe not quite as rich pickings as we've seen in previous weeks, but I've managed to collate a good few ideas of the heat that was seen in week number 5. So, without any further ado, let's get into some honourable mentions before we get into the coveted top 3 list. And starting off our honourable mentions, we have the newest member of the SPL roster. So, welcome to the roster, Steve of the House of Mouse, and welcome Steve to the Heat of the Week list. His game was up against D-Ray and the San Diego Spirits. Now, in the intro which you'll have just heard, I did mention mons like Cyclazar, which are seeing a lot more offensive usage than the original most common usage for it, which was that kind of offensive supporting set. And Steve came in with a kind of similar vibe. Kyurem, often seen as a specially offensive powerhouse, but here we saw loaded dice physical Kyurem coming in for Steve. And it put in a good amount of work. You know, he was off to a bad start with Gothitelle, the newest signing for the San Diego Spirits, trapping in and KOing the big threat that was Terra Fairy Chandelure. But with Chandelure able to at least chip down that Gothitelle, once it went down, in came physical Kyurem, able to get the 5-hit Icicle Spear with that loaded dice, taking out the arena trapping Gothitelle, or Shadow Tag I should say, basically the same kind of ability. But yes, able to take out that Gothitelle and remove it from the field of play entirely. And you know, this Icicle Spearing Kyurem was able to do a good amount of work into D-Ray's team. It was able to get some really meaningful chip damage onto a number of mons, including a very problematic, bulky Tinkaton. Unfortunately, it was in a losing effort, and Steve did have other counterplay to Gothitelle, including a Shed Shell Slowking, but unable to activate that as Gothitelle was taken out by the Kyurem early on in the game. So, nice use of that legendary Icy Dragon. It's nice to see the physical set come good now and then. And our second honourable mention is going to go to Talon of the Atlanta Talonflames, who saw himself going up against the very in-form Nova and his Bermuda Kecleons. Now, we saw a bit of Riot Berry action last week on Metagross. Today, that Riot Berry was on Gengar, but that was not the only trick Gengar had up its sleeve. Talon choosing to abandon the use of Poison Stab in favour of Encore and Thunder Wave. Now, this was intended to be taking on that Terrapagos, of course. You know, you can break the Terra Shell with the Riot Berry, you can get a T-Wave off, you can try and Encore it into, for example, a Rapid Spin if it's slower, or a Terra Starstorm, something like that, and then start causing problems. Now, Gengar never quite got that matchup into the Terrapagos, but it was still able to do a good amount of disruption, paralysing a very problematic Rillaboom, and getting that Roat Berry chip onto the Walking Wake, and any chip into Walking Wake is always useful. Gengar was also able to get some good cursed bodies off as well, which was a nice cherry on top of the cake. So, a really fun supportive Gengar set here. Roat Berry, Encore, T-Wave, none of them really doing the job they were intended for, but still all able to come good and get some really nice action going Talon's way in a very difficult matchup. So with those two honourable mentions out of the way, let's get into our top 3 for the week. And we are starting off sticking with a game we just mentioned, this time from the other side. Nova's Mew Kecleon's taking on Talon's Atlanta Talonflames, and it's a Mon we've mentioned as well. It's Rillaboom up today in third, coming in with a move that, honestly, until I found out about this team, I did not know that Rillaboom got, and from Talon's reaction, neither did he. Now we know that Nova has a very threatening Sun team going on, with Ninetales supporting the likes of Cinderace and Walking Wake, but I wasn't really expecting Rillaboom to be one of the Mons to be able to take advantage of that Sun, but here we go with Solar Blade Rillaboom. Really interesting bring here. It was built to be able to OHKO the Great Tusk on Talon's side, and again, whilst we never saw that matchup happen, that Rillaboom was able to get a good amount of value. In battle, it did just 1,000,000 damage to Gengar coming in on the switch with that Solar Blade. We also saw Low Kick doing the same to Baxcalibur on a Dragon Dance. This is basically here just kind of for the fun of it, really. Solar Blade does basically the same amount of damage as Wood Hammer. What you're doing there is trading a lack of recoil damage for having to use it in the sun to get the most out of it. And that's kind of why it's here. Nova could very easily have run Wood Hammer, but why do that when Solar Blade is just that much more fun and unexpected? So that's why we're giving it to Solar Blade Rillaboom, for the fun of it. And we love seeing that kind of thing on this Heat of the Week list. Coming in second position on our list, and we've had to do this a couple of times in this series, and we are just talking about an entire game here. This was Choice Items the Movie, as Standard and the Kansas City Curum took on Diet Tight and the Minnesota Lycanwolves. Two coaches who are no stranger to our Heat of the Week list, but we really have to talk about this entire game and team building. Let's start with Standard, who came in with a triple Choice Scarfed core of Roaring Moon, Shaymin, and Hitmontop. This was a really interesting one. Like Roaring Moon, you often see Scarfed. Shaymin, ever so slightly less so, but it still does have that potential. Hitmontop as a Scarfer is quite rare. So I really enjoyed this, especially since that Scarfed Hitmontop had Sunny Day, which is not the first time we've seen Sunny Day from Hitmontop, and it was able to get that off quite effectively. Unfortunately, the triple choice Scarf core wasn't quite able to power through. Shaymin was able to get some good, meaningful damage into a few things. Roaring Moon was able to U-turn around and grab that momentum, and as I say, Hitmontop was able to get a Sunny Day up and some nice chip damage into his opponent's Basculegion. But whilst we do enjoy triple choice Scarf core, it wasn't quite able to do the damage in the end. However, I did say we were talking about the full match, and Diet Tight was not to be outdone because he brought his own triple choice core, this time Choice Specs. Coming in with Specs are Caledon, Greninja, and Basculegion to really just do big amounts of damage to Standard's team. And a lot of them were able to. Whilst Greninja didn't really hit the field this game, Spexar Caledon was able to 1v1 a particularly nasty Mew, and Basculegion once again is the one taking the plaudits for this game, with KOs to both Specs Vaporeon, another choice mon, because why not have one more on your team, Standard, and indeed that Hitmontop, as well as getting really meaningful chip damage with that Terra Ghost Shadow Ball into the Roaring Moon, to cause the endgame to go Diet Tight's way. Yeah, not so many particular heat sets. I think probably the most heat out of all of them was Scarfed Sunny Day Hitmontop, which again, we love to see. But having a game with a triple choice core on either side absolutely deserves to make our Heat of the Week list. And so to our winner for this week. And for this time, it is going to be Kirby and the Toronto Rapscores taking on Dapper and the Appalachia Appletons. Now Dapper is another one who is no stranger to this list. Usually he's on the other side. But here, we are going to look at a very, very special Ursaluna Blood Moon. Now, the Ursaluna Blood Moon was mono-attacking with Blood Moon, also rocking out with Calm Mind and of course the Moonlight Recovery. But the reason that it's on this list is mostly for that final move Taunt, and the reason that that's so important is how Blood Moon functioned in this game. You see, Dapper had decided to bring Ting Lu as one of his answers to Blood Moon, which normally it would be able to do very well. The reason that the Blood Moon makes the top of my list this week is that it was able to counterplay into the Mon brought to counterplay it. Really well thought out thing here from Kirby. Ting Lu coming in and not able to do much damage to the very bulky Blood Moon as it set up a Calm Mind, and then able to taunt into the predicted Whirlwind. So Blood Moon able to set up really well on the Mon brought to stop it from doing so, and it was a really well played set. Keeping hidden for as long as he could that Blood Moon was the only offensive move he had, and therefore able to catch a Hawlucha coming in on a predicted Earth Power and grab that Oko with Blood Moon. What it also did was force the early Belly Drum on Dapper's Azumarill, which was really useful because I think Azu was probably an ideal endgame scenario for Dapper, but with Blood Moon getting out of control and rapidly running out of options to deal with it, it forced the early Belly Drum on Azumarill. Now while Azumarill was then able to 1v1 a Terra Poison Slowbro, it took a lot of damage in the process and meant that it was no longer a guaranteed answer to that Blood Moon. Dapper able to play around the Mon pretty well. To be fair, later on he had to get aggressive, and he did, switching around and getting Terra Dark Armor Rouge activated, but unfortunately by that point the damage had been done, and it all started with that taunt shutting down the Mon that was supposed to shut down it. Now, we should mention that that game ended in a little bit of controversy with a big crit that turned things around. Hard to say if it changed the result. I'm sure if you watched Eli's video earlier from this week, you will see exactly what happened in that one. Suffice it to say, hard to say if it changed the result of the game, but it certainly affected differential if nothing else. But the main thing we're taking from this is a very well thought out Ursaluna Blood Moon that shut down the Mon that was brought to take it on. And that is why it makes my list for Topper Heat of the Week for Week 5. And that is going to wrap things up from me. So thank you all so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. I know I got a bit rambly there. I'm not feeling at 100% and I'm having to record this quite early on because your boy's got a busy week coming up and I won't have time to record outside of today. It is currently Sunday, so I've been spending my day watching all the games as quickly as possible to make sure I can compile this list. Speaking of this list, what do you think of it? Is there anything that I missed off? Any orders that you would change? Let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're there, why not head into the description and check out all the links to our wonderful coaching roster, as well of course as our head honchos and the rest of our analyst team. I mentioned Eli earlier. His SPL center will have gone up sometime before this video, and as always you can check out Val's look ahead and transfer news coming up in the days to follow. But like I say, that is going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap things up here. I've rambled on for far too long and it is getting quite late in the day. So my final thank you to you all for watching, and I guess with that, I will see you next time. Laters.